All right. So talking about navigation, I really like some of the ideas that you have on there. And the questions I have in some of the stuff is just maybe you could explain to me the instance level features a little bit more about if there's like overlap with one another, as in like, can you really just like switch between them and there's really no like, how do you know you're in the same world with the instance level kind of, yeah, because coming from the static site editor, I'm kind of like not dealing a lot with instance level stuff. So I was just asking for clarity on how instance level things work.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know the history of GitLab's information architecture, but what I assume is GitLab was fundamentally built around the concept of a project.
Mhm.
And as such, our navigation has been sort of optimized towards things like very focused on the project because GitLab came from source code management, it came from all this sort of stuff, which sort of it makes sense for the project to be scoped that way.
Mhm.
Now that we're becoming more of like an enterprise focused company, we need to be considering multiple projects and groups and
Mhm.
so on at once. And analytics is, well, our team's now called it group optimize, but the features that sit within group optimize um, are not necessarily constrained to the scope of a single group or the scope of a single project.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's going to be looking at the entirety of the instance. So understanding how the instance is doing. So this would be like a persona of an engineering director or an executive, understanding how GitLab is being adopted or something along these lines.
Right.
Sometimes it's in the scope of um, focusing on multiple projects and groups at once and then excluding some other projects that may live within those and being like really specific on the area that you're trying to find.
Mhm.
Some of the customer conversations that I've had have shown that projects and groups don't typically map nicely specifically to teams within an organization. So physical teams that occur within an organization often span in different ways across projects and groups that we haven't been able to map out yet. And this is where the segments feature that we're developing in analytics is starting to allow us to be a little bit more specific and focused and granular on the instance level. So the challenge we have within analytics is there's some stuff which is relevant to projects and groups, but then there's also a lot of stuff which is relevant to the instance level. And the way our navigation is set up at the moment is quite confusing to differentiate between projects and groups, but it's also feels like the metaphors that we use on the navigation make it feel like a project isn't nested within a group and a group
Mhm.
isn't nested within an instance.
Mhm.
Um, so what I was trying to do was to make um, instance level the instance like more of a concept that
Right.
is universally understood by users. So can we make the instance as universally understood as a project?
Mhm.
And can we also tell the story of where projects live in groups and where groups live in the instance and so on? So
Gotcha.
that was like the general objective was to more clearly illustrate the mental model of what an instance is
Mhm.
so we can more effectively appeal to the more senior executive type people personas who use GitLab, um, or people who aren't necessarily looking at GitLab from a project point of view but are looking at it from like across project point of view or a cross group point of view, like security and so on. So what
Right.
we have in the nav now, if you look under the more menu, it's
Yep.
essentially all just like instance level features. And they've fallen under the more nav just sort of because they don't fit anywhere else.
Right.
So yeah, this is just something that I've been struggling with regards to like design and information architecture since I've been in GitLab. So that's what manifested the the issue.
So with your concept there, would that mean you would take analytics out of the left-hand menu and put it at a higher level to reflect that kind of thinking, that mental model that this is above everything else, or the parent of everything else?
So no, I would still in the current construct that we have, there would still be analytics which is relevant to like specifically relevant to a project, and then there'd still be analytics that is specifically relevant to groups. So there would be sort of the three levels of it. You could, if you wanted to, and this is something that would potentially be created in a year or two's time, maybe, but start to create saved analytics pages, and that could potentially reduce some of the content from the sidebar. And then those saved analytics pages could be scoped in whatever way you want, and then they would just be saved in like an analytics hub, which would be accessed at the instance level. And I've actually got a video. That I recorded quite recently, but not quite. That's I will share with you. YouTube navigation. So yeah, this is, how old is it? From May. So some of the stuff I'm talking about is a little bit dated. I'm just going to drop this in the chat, but it should give you an indication of like some of the stuff that I was talking about. And just take a look at that. And as well as that, the stopgap that we've been doing in analytics is just dropping stuff in the admin panel, because the admin panel is effectively instance level, but that's not doing wonders for our usage. So we're trying to get it out of the admin panel as quickly as possible.
All right. Is there a reason you stuck it in the admin panel versus in the more panel?
So we originally had analytics in the more panel, and then in order to drive usage, we moved it up into the nav bar and just had it as an icon. And then Sid commented on it saying, look, you're starting to clutter the nav bar, so can we get rid of this? And then at the stage that we were at, we didn't really have enough content at the instance level to justify putting it back into the more menu. So we thought, rather than doing that, let's just put the instance level features within the admin panel for now. And then we can put the other features that don't necessarily need to be instance level. We can actually just align those to group level, such as productivity analytics, and sort of just work with it from that side. But now I've actually created an issue today, which I think is like the short term is put analytics in the more panel again. Which is instance analytics more again. Here we go. So that's that's something that we'll probably prioritize quite soon.
I love this because you're preemptively answering all my upcoming questions. So this is really good.
Cool.
All right. So one of the things that you proposed was this issue here. I'm just going to post in the chat. So this is consolidating the menus, project group, and more into one selection area.
Yep.
And one of the points that I wasn't able to pick out myself was the one point in there around, by making the change, you're increasing the clarity, or like one of the goals is increasing the clarity of what workspace the user is currently in. I was just wondering how that is achieved through the proposed designs.
Yes. So let me just read through this issue because it was a while back since I wrote it. So, okay, yeah. So we divided the concept of project and group, although they're not really that different. They're just sort of the containers for the thing, for the area that you're working in. Mm-hmm. So when I refer to like the clarity of the thing that you're working in, what I'm really talking about is showing that the concept of projects and groups are sort of mutually exclusive, and just being really clear with this is the container that we're in right now, and these are the items that live within this container.
Gotcha.
So by consolidating the single project and group and more experience, it's starting to make the concept of container or workspace more of a thing, rather than I'm in a project right now, I'm in a group right now, rather than I'm in a workspace right now, and that workspace happens to be a project, or I'm in a workspace now that happens to be an instance, or that happens to be a user view, or whatever it may be.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, and that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Okay.
I just want to walk you through one design that I have in my mind right now, and I just wanted to get your sense check on whether this is like the right thinking about like instance or like kind of the workplace. So I'm just going to share my screen now. And okay. So do you remember this design of yours? On the left-hand side here, where you have like
yes,
menu
yeah.
and a sidebar. And one of the interesting things in there was like opening this opens up like that menu of all the things. I brought this up because to me, I was kind of trying to look for something like this in the other design to show the current workspace that you were in. But I digress, and I'll just jump into this. So what I'm thinking of taking for this is very like rough thinking right now, but like you suggested, consolidating those things into like one menu item, and then pressing menu opens up all those things there. Cool. Now, if we go back to this guy here with this like instance thing, what? Oh yeah, there we go. So, is this the right like? Is this wrong to like think that instance level or like changing the current context to be using this kind of like pattern to say like this is the thing that you're currently in, so it could be like project or group, but it'd be like higher level than or it takes this, but instead of doing the left menu thing, I think I'm just doing it in the context of like having the top navigation is still there. So I was like, would this be the right application of this this component that you were thinking of here?
Yeah, for sure. I was sort of thinking in a similar way to you. For the MVC, I sort of initially mapped out. I just thought it would be simpler if we just stuck with the menu item concept that we have at the moment. But yeah, that makes sense. right
Okay.
there, it's starting to be a little bit more clear of what is the workspace I'm in and what type of workspace is it. So
Mm-hmm.
instance and GitLab Co is where I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
The two sidebar approach that I took there, I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily drawn to it. I
Mm-hmm.
just sort of put it there to provide a little to see if we could maximize the vertical space.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, you sort of optimize it in whatever way you want.
Yeah.
But I think what's nice about this layout is it sort of more clearly differentiates the stuff which is just mine personally, so my
Mm-hmm.
user workspace stuff, so my issues, my, and
Mm-hmm.
then the shared stuff, which is like the instance level stuff,
Yeah.
the
The
stuff
stuff
in gray
here.
and
Yeah.
white,
Yep. And then the
and
content.
and having yeah, exactly, and then having the um, workspace items or the items within the workspace
Mm-hmm.
directly underneath that context,
Yeah.
again, I think helps to reinforce the story that these are the items that live within this workspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. uh, Yeah. I think that's a it's clear what this is saying. So yeah, that makes sense. And I guess like from an alignment perspective, it's like these things fall underneath this kind of parent. So if I change this to
Yeah.
a project, then I'll see like issues and whatever merge requests and things like that. And whatever that information architecture may be. Cool,
Yeah. Exactly.
cool. Um, Yeah, so that concludes the like key questions I have for today. Um, so there, right now the team is just ramping up, and the UX research team is doing some research to get like a baseline and understanding of where things should fit in from an information architecture standpoint, and plus the current experiences around settings and navigation. Um, from splitting up settings and navigation, the team feels like there's some stuff in settings that are kind of low hanging fruit that we can like tackle without too much solution validation. But navigation is something that we feel like needs a little bit more solution validation. So some of this stuff around like consolidating the menus is kind of front of mind to like tackle very soon. So we're going to start taking that through. Um, the bookmarking thing is a very interesting thing. It's listed as one of the things that we could look at, but it's a big piece because
Yeah.
so we might tackle some of the more immediate stuff, but like my personal thing is like it'll be nice to have bookmarking thing because my current like thesis on how navigation should work in GitLab is that you should be able to navigate GitLab through GitLab without using or depending on browser extensions or like browser functionality, as in
Yeah.
uh, back buttons or like finding where you need to go. That ultimately that'd be the ideal situation. But yeah, that'll probably take a while to get to. But yeah, do you have any questions for me before we wrap up today?
Um, let me think. I've shared with you my Figma file for the navigation stuff. I don't know whether you had that already, but
Is it this one
I
here?
shared the yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I shared that with you, and then as you can see, like I also like tried like a Salesforce thing, which was
Mm-hmm.
more of a like a
Tabs on
horizontal
tabs. Yeah.
mapping. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think appreciate you getting in touch, and I'm really excited to see sort of the navigation improve in general within GitLab. With
Mm.
regards to the navigation research that you're
Mm-hmm.
doing,
Mm-hmm.
um, I wonder whether uh, so I wonder whether there's an exercise that can be done to see how people think about the information architecture or hierarchy of these key navigation objects. So understanding people's mental model of how they think instance level instances, projects and groups map and relate to each other. And ideally, they would think a group lives within an instance and a project lives within a group. But what's more important is understanding how they think about the items that live within a workspace. So yeah, I've sort of talked about the general narrative of what story is this navigation telling you about the way that the navigation and information architecture works. And I'd love to know a little bit more concretely from users how they think about what lives within what, and whether the new story that we're pitching of objects relating to each other and objects being parents or children with one another makes sense. So sort of combining that together like as a card exercise, and combining that together with some solution validation, I think would give you two angles to the story from a research perspective that could be quite valuable.
Okay, cool. I'll raise that up with Catherine, who's a UX researcher, to see if they're already covering that. And if not, yeah, we'll tackle that in solution validation as well. Cool.
Yeah, if there's anything else, more than happy to work with you synchronously or asynchronously, and yeah, help out however I can.
Awesome. Cool. I appreciate that, Nick. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for the call, and have a great day. Bye.
You too. See you later.
Yeah.